we inherited an unsustainable situation.
Is the money for the base?
Well, we inherited.
It's really straightforward.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We inherited. Yeah, we pay for basing all around the world, and we inherited an unsustainable situation for the base from the previous administration.
But you're also giving them £9 billion. What is that money for?
Well, there's been a whole bunch of speculation around the finances,
yeah, that's why
a lot of which I don't recognise.
Okay.
You'll understand that for national security
But just to be clear,
reasons.
the money is to pay for the base.
So the money is a crucial part of the arrangements, and those arrangements haven't changed. There's been no change
is the money
in that.
Remember that time you were caught red-handed and tried to talk your way out of it? Now imagine doing that on national television with millions watching and £9 billion at stake. That's exactly what happened to this Labour MP. But it's not just about one bad interview. It's a symptom of a deeper rot within the party. And trust me, you'll want to see how this train wreck unfolds. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great, thank you so much. Now, back to the video. The £9 billion question has become a political hot potato, and one Labour MP found themselves holding it with bare hands on live television. In a recent interview about the Chagos Islands deal, what should have been a straightforward discussion about sovereignty and compensation turned into a masterclass in political evasion. As the interview unfolded, viewers were treated to a spectacle of verbal gymnastics that would make even the most seasoned politician blush. The Labour MP, when pressed about the details of the £9 billion payment, seemed to have forgotten the art of giving a straight answer. It was like watching a game of verbal twister, with the MP contorting their responses to avoid saying anything of substance. But why the dance around such a seemingly simple question? Is it a case of not knowing the facts, or is there something more calculated at play? The evasion tactics employed by the MP raise eyebrows and questions in equal measure. Are we witnessing mere incompetence, or is this a deliberate strategy to avoid committing to a position that might come back to haunt the party later?
But you're also giving them £9 billion. What is that money for?
Well, there's been a whole bunch of speculation around the finances,
yeah, that's why
a lot of which I don't recognise.
Okay, pay for the base. Is that what that money's for?
So
because if you get my point, people might be like, hang on a minute, we're giving them land and we're paying them for the privilege. What's going on?
We pay for basing arrangements around the world, and there are important costs on those. And we're clear as a government that we won't scrimp on our national security, and this base is crucially important to the defence.
The public reaction was swift and merciless. Social media platforms erupted with a mix of frustration, humor, and outright anger. One Twitter user quipped, "I've seen jellyfish with more backbone than this MP." Another commented, "If dodging questions was an Olympic sport, Labour would be gold medalists." The court of public opinion was in session, and the verdict was not looking favorable for the Labour Party. This fumble doesn't exist in isolation. It's part of a larger pattern of communication failures that have plagued Labour in recent times. From unclear policy positions to contradictory statements, the party seems to be struggling to present a united and coherent front. This latest incident only serves to reinforce the perception that Labour is out of touch and unprepared for the rigors of governance. The implications for Labour's transparency and credibility are significant. In an era where trust in politicians is already at an all-time low, such evasive maneuvers only serve to deepen public cynicism. How can voters trust a party that can't or won't provide clear answers on matters of national importance? As we've seen time and again, in politics, it's often not the initial misstep that causes the most damage, but the subsequent handling of it. Labour now faces an uphill battle to regain control of the narrative and reassure the public of their competence and transparency. Just when Labour thought they'd weathered the storm of embarrassing interviews, along came Steve Reed to prove that lightning can indeed strike twice. The Shadow Environment Secretary found himself in the hot seat on Sky News, facing questions about his acceptance of hospitality from a water company's parent firm. What unfolded was a masterclass in political self-sabotage that would make even the most seasoned spin doctors cringe. Picture this.
So how much money are we giving them then?
Well, the details will be provided in due course of the deal. We said that we'll provide those details with Parliament in due course. We obviously don't normally, as a routine, comment on the costs of our bases overseas. We inherited an unsustainable situation.
Is the money for the base?
Well, we inherited.
It's really straightforward.
No, absolutely. We inherited. Yeah, we pay for basing all around the world, and we inherited an unsustainable situation for the base from the previous administration.
So the money's
for the
base.
United Kingdom and the USA, and indeed to the security of our allies, security in the Indo-Pacific.
Reed, tasked with holding water companies accountable, couldn't even keep his own story straight about a football match he attended. When confronted by Kay Burley about tickets he'd received from Northumbrian Water's parent company, Reed initially denied it outright, but here's the kicker. He'd already declared this very hospitality in the Register of Members' Interests. It's like being caught with your hand in the cookie jar and claiming you thought it was a vase. As Burley pressed on, Reed's defense crumbled faster than a sandcastle at high tide. He claimed ignorance about the connection between Hutchison and Northumbrian Water, uttering the now infamous line, "I wouldn't have known that." Burley, not one to let such a gem slide, fired back with the question on everyone's mind. Why wouldn't you? You should have known that.
They entered into negotiations, which they were right to do so. Went through 11 rounds of them over 2 years. They seem to have forgotten this. You'll understand that for national security
But just to be clear, the money is to pay for the base.
So the money is a crucial part of the arrangements, and those arrangements haven't changed. There's been no change
is the money
in that. And we're very, very clear that we wanted to conclude this deal to secure the base into the future for our national security.
The absurdity of a shadow environment secretary not knowing who owns the water companies he's meant to regulate is staggering. It's like a football manager not knowing which team he's coaching. Reed's performance was so poor that Burley pointed out their producer found the ownership information in just 5 minutes. One has to wonder, if a TV producer can outperform the shadow environment secretary on water industry knowledge, what hope does Labor have of actually reforming the sector? But wait, it gets better. When cornered, Reed resorted to the political equivalent of, "The dog ate my homework," stating, "I don't think it's helpful that you are able to ask me questions like this." Cue laughter from Burley, and likely viewers across the nation. It's a moment that perfectly encapsulates the growing frustration with politicians who seem more adept at dodging questions than answering them. The irony of Reed's situation is as thick as the pollution in our rivers. Here's a man who's been publicly advocating for stricter regulations on the water industry, all while enjoying 1,786 pounds worth of football hospitality from a company linked to pollution incidents. It's no wonder an anti-pollution campaigner called it blatantly inappropriate hospitality. The optics are, to put it mildly, not great. Reed's proposed legislation to regulate the water industry now looks about as effective as a paper umbrella in a hurricane. His focus on blocking director bonuses and introducing criminal charges for obstructing investigations seems laughably inadequate when he can't even navigate a simple interview about corporate hospitality. The Labour Party's recent media performances have dealt a significant blow to their credibility. With only 29% of voters expressing confidence in their ability to govern effectively, Labour faces an uphill battle to regain public trust. This decline in confidence isn't just a passing phase, it's a symptom of a deeper crisis in political communication. As we've seen in these interviews, Labour MPs seem woefully unprepared for the rigors of public scrutiny. In an age where information is readily available at our fingertips, how can politicians afford to be so ill-equipped? The public's patience is wearing thin, and rightly so. We're not just witnessing isolated incidents of poor communication. We're seeing a pattern that suggests a systemic problem within the party. But let's be clear, this isn't just a Labour issue, it's a challenge to our entire political system. As voters, we must demand better from all our elected officials, regardless of party affiliation. The question remains, in an era of instant fact-checking and social media backlash, can any politician afford to be this unprepared? The answer may well determine the future of British politics.